CanWest Global Communications, a leader and innovator in mass media. The Global Television Network, 8 digital specialty channels, 11 metropolitan daily newspapers, an international media giant spanning 3 continents, headquartered in Winnipeg. Yes, Winnipeg. This is a story of vision, determination, and community. The story of a small independent television station that sprouted a media empire. But mostly, it's a look back at 30 years of people and events that have shaped our province.
I well remember that warm Labor Day weekend of 1975 when we threw the switch to launch CKND.
And so all of a sudden, Winnipeggers and Manitobans started seeing themselves on television in a way that they'd never seen before.
We were producing commercials. We were producing Game of the Week. We carried the Jets.
We did it in Winnipeg. We changed the dynamics of the television industry in Canada.
My father passed on to me one basic set of values, which is work equals reward, and with reward comes responsibility. And that really characterized his whole life.
It all began in Minnedosa, Manitoba. It was here, in this picturesque prairie town, that Israel Harold Asper, or Izzy to his friends, learned not only to dream big, but also to stay true to his roots.
He told me about how he loved the freedom of running around the country, not being accountable to anybody, playing in the fields, and just living this wonderfully pastoral country life. And so it was a big change for him when he came to the big city of Winnipeg.
But Izzy adapted well and soon embarked on a career in law and a foray into politics as leader of the Manitoba Liberal Party.
He'd been to every nook and cranny in the province. He'd been giving speeches. He'd been talking about the issues. But it really didn't translate into an ability to do something because in the end, he didn't get elected.
He really believed that the best democracy, the most dynamic democracy, was one where the citizenry were the most informed. And television had an incredible role to play in that.
Discouraged by politics, Asper and his executive assistant, Peter Liba, began contemplating new directions.
And I happened to be reading my old alma mater one night, the Tribune, and saw a CRTC ad inviting applications for a new Winnipeg television station. That sounded interesting. I ripped the ad out and brought it to the legislature the next day and showed it to Izzy and said, here's something we might be worth looking at.
He was a maverick, he was an unknown, and he was trying to effect huge positive change for Manitoba, and he felt thwarted by the media. So his response was, if you can't beat him, join him.
Entering the Winnipeg television market in 1973 would prove to be challenging, to say the least. In addition to CBC and CKY, there was a third channel, KCND, a tiny border station broadcasting out of Pembina, North Dakota.
KCND, a wonderful channel. I grew up watching KCND, of course. I love Chiller, Thriller, and Ironside, and all those great shows.
It was kind of quaint, but it wasn't us. It wasn't Winnipeg, it wasn't Manitoba.
KCND presented a dilemma for Asper and Liba. As long as the American station was drawing advertising dollars out of Winnipeg, another TV enterprise could not survive. Izzy Asper would have to negotiate for the purchase of the station, and he'd have to win.
Wish I'd been a fly on the wall in those negotiations with the guys down there, but one of my dad's greatest attributes was persistence. And when he set his mind to something, whether or not he had the qualifications to be running a television station or not, he was going to persevere and he was going to win in the end. And he did.
Asper's successful negotiation was met with approval by the CRTC for a new station in Winnipeg. KCND's call letters were reversed just to keep things simple, and CKND was on its way to hitting the airwaves. Well, almost.
When we won the license for this place, none of us had any experience in broadcasting. None. And we finally went to Saskatoon fairly early, and we're fortunate enough to get Don Brinton, a veteran broadcaster, to come here and lead the operation. So we had somebody who knew what they were doing.
Well, there was a lot of insanity involved, I guess, at that time. And I had accumulated some 20 years of being an operator at that point, so I joined them.
Semi-trailer by semi-trailer, KCND's equipment crossed the border and made its way to 603 St. Mary's Road, the new home of CKND.
Even when he drove me by the Safeway store and said this is going to be a television station, and most people would have poo-pooed that, I knew it was going to be a television station because he always did what he said he was going to do.
Temporary offices were set up on Portage Avenue while construction got underway. The task? To magically transform a vacant Safeway store into a fully operational television station.
On September the 1st, Canada will get its third independent English language VHF station.
Job interviews were conducted over card tables and between cardboard boxes. Hundreds of applications poured in. Asper and Leba weren't the only ones caught up in the allure of television.
Back in the 70s, there were people who didn't have televisions. They were just getting color televisions. So it was a whole new industry.
It was showbiz. Still is showbiz. But then it was so new.
CKND. We know Winnipeg, we know television, and we know your needs. Give us a tumble. We've got what it takes to help you bring home the bacon.
I mean, it was a case of dog catches car, now what? Because once you had a business, they start eating up some cash. You start losing money.
What you can't see is how fast and powerful this current is.
The most widespread flooding in Manitoba history.
This is remarkable in that it's so widespread.
Manitobans prove once again the meaning of the word community.
That's how small communities work, and that's what keeps things going around here.
30 years of making Manitoba home. Manitoba's Global News. First at 5:30, followed by Global National at 6.